Is Kenneth Walker III dancing too much? This has been a common refrain that I'm hearing from some of my fellow Seahawks fans on the heels of this Tampa Bay Buccaneer game. I've heard it at other times this year in regards to Walker's game, but especially after this game that saw Walker carry the ball 10 times for a meager 17 yards. And when you look at the Pro Football Focus scores coming on the heels of this game, the Seahawks offensive linemen graded out pretty reasonably well. And they all graded out well in the run blocking element of things, with maybe the exception of Gabe Jackson, who was a little more middling. You also look at the Pro Football Focus scores, and they have Kenneth Walker as one of the lowest ranked offensive players in this game for your Seahawks. So that would seem to lend credence to the thought process here that Kenneth Walker is indeed dancing too much. But we're not going to be relying on the opinions of others. We're not going to be reliant solely on just the Pro Football Focus scores. We're going to dive into the tape here at the Hawks Nest and take a closer look at this past game to see if Kenneth Walker truly was doing a little bit too much dancing. On this first run of Walker, I've seen this one presented as a direct representation of him not putting his head down and hitting the hole hard enough. In fact, I've seen a couple screenshots grabbed from this very play. So we're going to look at this a little more closely. And what you'll notice out the gate here is the Seahawks have 7 men to block up the 7 men of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the line of scrimmage. But also let's pay attention to 32, the strong safety for Tampa Bay, who is lurking over the top. I wouldn't say he's fully in the box here per se, but he's close enough to be a problem. And if you block this up perfectly and correctly across the board at the line, Walker is still eventually going to have to break that tackle of the strong safety, especially if he does get aggressive in the run game. Now, when this play is snapped, what really messes it up is Devin White. White, standing here in the middle of the field, your middle linebacker, is about 4 yards off the ball. Gabe Jackson is the guy who's going to be responsible for blocking him on this play. Gabe's got to go about 1.5 yards to his left to reach Devin White and lay that block. White's got to go about 4 yards to shoot past him. White shows off his quickness here and speed, getting right past Gabe Jackson. Gabe completely basically doesn't whiff the block, but doesn't get a real solid block laid down either. And this then gives Devin White a very clear path to getting after Kenneth Walker. Now, if I stop this play right about here, it would seem to indicate that Kenneth Walker certainly does have a hole to go through. Look at that big corridor of a lane to go through there. But it looks that way because you were not really paying as much attention to Devin White. He kind of has disappeared here a little bit in the bodies, but he is right there. And if Kenneth Walker presses this hole, White is going to tackle him and most likely for a negative yard play. If Walker tries to bounce this play outside, Carl Nassib, the right defensive end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has already set the edge over there and taken that away. So he does the only thing he can do here, which is break the tackle of Devin White and try to get what he can get on this very play. The very thing people are really wanting him to do is just take what you can get there. That's exactly what he's doing here. He cuts back across the grain, breaks the tackle of Devin White, but this then leaves him vulnerable to the strong safety who's coming downhill, who's unblocked. I don't see a whole hell of a lot that Kenneth Walker could have done on this particular play. On this play, we've got the Seahawks in a read option look. And what stands out the gate here, much like the last play, is you've got 5 offensive linemen for the Seahawks plus Will Disley as a 6th to block up the 7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are down around the line of scrimmage. So Kenneth Walker, even if this play is blocked up correctly, mano-a-mano, is still going to end up at some point by the designs of this play having to break a tackle of an unblocked defender. Now, this is not an unusual thing in the NFL. There are plenty of rushing plays out there that call upon the running backs to do this. This is part of why it helps to have a little bit of a difference maker at the position who can do that. The problem comes into play when you don't block it up correctly. When defenders are able to slip those blocks, and now you have them coming along with the unblocked defender, and it starts to make it nearly impossible for the running back to do much of anything. And that is just what happens here. The Seahawks run this play as an outside zone to the left. You have both the right tackle and right guard pull back across the formation post-play. It actually looks like it could be potentially a fairly good gain here early on in this play. But the problem comes in when Austin Blythe is tasked with having to block up Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks is a very large human being. He is very hard to deal with. Austin Blythe is not the largest of human beings and does struggle at times in the run game. Hicks is able to basically with almost ease slide right off Blythe's block and then come downhill to make a hit on Kenneth Walker that he barely sees coming, quite frankly. Again, I can pause this play much like the last play and say, what is it he's supposed to do? If I have Walker a couple steps after he gets the ball here and you're saying, well, he should bounce it outside. He's got to get outside with that. Well, you have Antoine Winfield Jr., who's pretty fleet of foot, who's setting the edge on this play. He's serving as that defender in his responsibility, so he's not allowing anything to go around his outside shoulder. Walker's essentially going where the play is programmed. So if you're in this situation asking him to cut it back to the left, well, he's going where he's supposed to be going with the play. He's doing what everybody's asking him to do, which is essentially put his head down and drive that ball up into the hole as far as you can get it. And that's just what he does here. It's not his fault that Austin Blythe completely whiffs on his block of Akeem Hicks. For this play, the Seahawks come out in their devastating 3 tight end look, which has been so good for them both in the run and the pass this year. And they stack the 3 tight ends to one side of the field. This then is a pitch play to that side of the field. So the Seahawks have a little bit seemingly of some numbers game help here over there on that right side. And Walker takes the pitch and things start to get strung out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers very nicely. Seahawks do a good job of getting the double team block here on Akeem Hicks with Noah Fant and Will Disley. But the guy that messes this up, and as we've seen in the last couple of plays, it's one real Tampa Bay defender who's really messing the whole run game up here, and that is one Devin White. White, with his speed, with his ranginess, with his quickness, is just all over this play. And he gets a couple head start versus where I think Abraham Lucas thinks he's going to be prior to the snap. And Lucas has got a tough assignment here, having to come downhill and get to White before he reads the play. And he is just unable to do it. White flows to the ball, and he's right there to fill the hole as soon as Walker gets to it. Now, if I do run this and stop it right about here, you can see that there is a theoretical hole here for Kenneth Walker if he wants to cut this back up inside. I might push back just a little bit against this, though. The play is programmed to be a pitch wide, not for him to run it back inside. And he may have that level of trust from the coaches to be able to make that cut in that moment. But I would make at least a little bit of a guess here that he's been told by the coaches, this is where you need to go with this on this play. Trust the designs of the play, trust your blocking, and stay in the flow of it. Don't do too much of that freelancing, or the very thing a lot of people are accusing him of doing, which is be too much dancing. No dancing on this play, trying to get to the hole. It's just not blocked up enough right. It's blocked up well, but Devin White is enough to kill the play in itself, as we've seen in the last couple of plays. Again, on this play, we've got the Seahawks in a read option look. And again, they've got 6 guys on the line of scrimmage to combat the 7 guys for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, it is going to be an outside run to the left side. What you'll notice right out the jump post-play is that DK Metcalf gets up on his horse and gets down to lay his block at the line of scrimmage on the linebacker who appears to be shooting the gap. Good job by DK there, as this then does seem to show to Kenneth Walker that he is going to have a hole to run through. But that hole then does get quickly closed up by the defensive back, who himself gets on his own horse and gets down there into that hole, fills the lane, and then does a great job of tackling Kenneth Walker in open space. Usually when you got a running back and a defensive back going one-on-one out there in the open field, you're going to like your running back's chances. The defensive back just happens to make a great tackle here. But if I do pull this play back a few frames and stop it right about here, you will notice that there is a theoretical hole here early on in the play between Austin Blythe and Phil Haynes. Little crack of a hole. But lurking over the top is Devin White. And he's already been a problem here early on in this running game, so you've got to figure Kenneth Walker's probably leery of going right back after him. And if I've got to make the choice of breaking a tackle between Devin White and defensive back, I'm going to go ahead and choose the defensive back. Now, perhaps maybe Abraham Lucas, who's laying his double team block, would have been able to peel off that and get down to the second level on Devin White and break this play for a big gainer at that point if Kenneth Walker did take it up the middle. But for Kenneth Walker to make that choice and decision, he's got to then go away from where this hole was pre-programmed to go, which was the left side. And as he's looking to the left side after he gets the ball, it does seem to be blocked up correctly. So why choose the alternative hole if my initial hole is looking open? Still, I will give a little ground to those folks here who would say, no, he probably should have just taken this right up the middle. My standpoint, I don't think so, but I can understand why someone would say that or believe that on this play. On this play, we've got an outside zone run that Kenneth Walker cuts back across the grain as he seems to have found a hole, he thinks, for a moment on the right side away from where the play is designed to go. But part of the reason that he's driven to make that cut here is if you look to the left side, you've got Joe Tyron setting the edge on the far left-hand side. You've got the Seahawks running a double team at the point of attack, and the double team's kind of struggling. Notice where we start at the line of scrimmage versus where we finish up when the play starts to get to that side of things. And you'll notice that they get no push here in on Vita Vea. Nor does Damian Lewis get off of the double team block to get on to Devin White, which is what I think is supposed to happen here at some point in this particular play. Walker reads this, sees Devin White is free and clear, starts to cut it back first to one hole, but then notices Devin White sitting in that hole, then cuts it far back to the right, and ends up getting, in my opinion, what he can here. If he just jams this up the middle, I don't see a lot of yards there to be had. And cutting it back here, he gets a couple, but I don't know what was there available he was supposed to take otherwise. If I stop this, again, if you just run these by stills and hold you right here at this moment, it looks like, well, if he goes right up the back of Austin Blythe, basically straight down the corridor, he's got a good run to be had here. But again, remember, Devin White is completely unblocked on this play. And look at how quickly Devin White covers the ground to close that hole up. And not only close that hole up, to get back over to the right side of the field to help make the tackle on Walker as he's cutting it back. I don't look at this play again and see very many places where Walker can go other than where he went. And I certainly don't see him doing a whole hell of a lot of dancing. Another shotgun read option look here. Again, Seahawks have 6 guys at the line of scrimmage to block up the 7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers defenders that they have in the box. Seahawks are also going to try to have Noah Fant block the right defensive end here, and it all goes to hell. Now, the reason you have a tight end blocking a defensive end in this situation versus having Cross do it is that you're running the play to the right, and you're figuring that that guy to the backside of the play is not really going to affect things versus where you're running it to the other side. Indeed, though, he does affect it with effort as the right defensive end just pushes Noah Fant right back into Kenneth Walker's kitchen almost from the moment that he gets the ball. This then leaves Kenneth Walker scrambling at that point. He looks to hole up the middle, but in there he's got another big man ready to tackle him if he goes up through there. If he goes to the right, he's got Antoine Winfield shooting through the gap unblocked, and it would be an easy tackle there as well. Not really sure about where he is supposed to go here or where he is doing too much dancing in this situation when he doesn't even have much of an opportunity to go find a hole as he has a defender pushed right back up into his face almost from the jump. So the pitch plays aren't working. Read options not working. The Seahawks go back to the old tried and true inside zone here. They're going to go right up the gut and see if they can find just a little bit more success against this Tampa Bay team. And from the standpoint of the start of this play, it looks pretty good as far as the numbers are concerned. You don't have necessarily the unblocked defender lurking there on this play at the line of scrimmage as we've seen in some of these other plays. And from the jump of this play, it looks pretty good. Austin Blythe does a nice job of getting the zero tech one-on-one off of his feet, albeit it's not the most prettiest of blocks. But things go sideways in this situation very quickly. Phil Haynes is tasked with laying a second-level block on Devin White, and as we've already seen on a couple of these cut-ups, that's a tough assignment for him to draw. Abraham Lucas also has himself a tough assignment. He's got to hit a reach block on a defensive end in what's called the 4-eye technique. And what that means is that the defensive end's on the inside shoulder essentially of the right tackle there. So what that gives him then is a head start. If that tackle is going to go to his right and go fast to his right off the snap, Lucas is going to be behind him a little bit if he decides to shoot it in that fashion, which the defensive end does do. So Lucas does get his hands on him, doesn't completely get beat, but he is taken for a little bit of a ride. And between that defensive end and Phil Haynes missing his block on Devin White, this hole, which looked opened up momentarily just a second ago, gets closed very fast, and White is able to help bring Walker to the ground. There's not a lot else that I could have seen Walker to do here, as much like we've seen on the other plays. There is a hole that looks opened up here initially, and if he's reading things correctly, he's going to go to the hole where he's programmed to go if there's an actual hole that has developed there initially off the snap. If you wanted to, we could take this play back right at the moment when Walker does get the ball And it does look like he does press this hole a little bit right over the top straight up. And if he does maybe take a couple steps to his left where he's shooting the hole, he might have a little bit more of an open lane. That might be enough to then offset Devin White, because White is slipping the block going around his left. Walker with that extra couple steps, that might be an extra couple steps too far for White to go at that point to be able to then tackle Walker. So that could be a little bit of a nitpick that you could apply to this situation. But overall, we're not seeing Walker in this situation dancing too much or not putting his head down and just trying to get through the hole. Here we have a pistol formation for your Seahawks and an inside run off of the pistol look. This actually looks like a good play call for Shane Waldron here to out the jump, as you've got the Bucs aligned with a little bit of a wide alignment on their defensive line there, stretched out a little bit. This is just the type of front, sort of a wide 9 kind of looking front almost a little bit. Exactly the type of front that you would think you'd be able to eat on with the inside run. And the play does look like it's blocked up well. Looks like you are catching the Bucs with their pants down a little bit in this scheme, in this situation. But as we have seen with some of these other plays, it just takes one player supremely messing up their block for the whole play to go to hell. And in this case, it's actually going to be Marquise Goodwin. Goodwin comes off the blocks, and he's in a very good position here to lay his block in on the cornerback. He's got leverage. He's got the position to do so. He just doesn't really give the kind of effort you'd like to see here. He doesn't quite get tenacious enough with it, and he allows the defender to cut inside his shoulder there to then go have a direct path to then hit Kenneth Walker and stop this play dead in its tracks. If Goodwin makes this particular block, this play might go to the end zone. Walker might house it. But because he completely misses it, and oddly misses it at that, this isn't like we saw a moment ago with Lucas having to hit a tough reach block. This is a play where you're put in position, you've caught the defender off guard and thinking that it's going to be something else, and yet you just didn't put enough into your block to allow for it to sustain for Walker to be able to do anything. It is also another play that we can take a look at here where Walker is not doing any dancing. There's not him looking here, looking there, jumping here, jumping there. He's trying to attack up the hole. He actually has one of his better runs on the day on this particular play. But as I said a second ago, it can sometimes just be one player down there around the line of scrimmage to mess things up, even a wide receiver that can make the whole play kind of go to hell. On the final play here, we're going to look at the Seahawks again in the read option look, and they did run this play a second ago, though they ran it to the left side. This time they're going to run it to the right side, and much like we saw before, they're going to pull two offensive linemen back across the formation, being Charles Cross and Damian Lewis. The Seahawks off the snap leave Carl Nassib unblocked, so he has kind of a free run to go right at the point of attack on this play. Now linemen are coming back across the formation to take care of Carl, but he's got a good amount of penetration and he stays under control in his pursuit here to where you're not really able to do a whole hell of a lot on this play because there just is no hole to be had and the defensive end played it right. When you leave a defensive end like this unblocked, you tend to want to see if he'll go and over pursue a little bit. And then the wham block comes across the scheme and it almost, in a lot of ways, he takes care of himself in that respect of things on the play. Now, if I stop this play and go, well, let's see what Kenneth Walker could have done to go somewhere else or bounce this out. Because again, there is the criticism being tossed about here with him and that he's dancing too much, that he's not just putting his head down. Well, he puts his head down again here on this run and it doesn't go for a whole hell of a lot. If he had attempted to try to bounce this out to his right, you had Levante David on this play unblocked and ready to then secure that tackle out in space. If he tried to cut this back to the left, which I don't know how he could have even pulled that off because the whole play is built to flow to the right side, you had Antoine Winfield coming off that edge, also unblocked. Much like we've seen in a lot of these plays, there is just nowhere for Kenneth Walker to go. But a couple things here. Not only is there nowhere for him to go, where is he dancing? Where is he taking too much time to deliberate and decide where he should go? I'm not seeing it on this cut up of tape. Maybe he was doing it in past few weeks, but he wasn't doing it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kenneth Walker III is not Marshawn Lynch. It's not Thomas Rawls. It's not Chris Carson. It's not even Rashad Penny, who probably has about 20 pounds on the kid. He is his own unique style of beast. And the dancing is going to be part of that. He's the type of player who is going to try to break tackles in a phone booth. He's 5'9", maybe 215. He's not going to have the size or heft to be able to drag 285, 300-pound linemen through the middle of a hole. That's just not something that's in his skill set to do, nor should it be something that we ask from him. But on the other end of it, he's going to provide you a lot of big plays, and we should encourage that. It might behoove the Seahawks into the future to look for more of a thunder to Kenneth Walker's lightning, but we do need his lightning, and it's going to be useful and helpful for this team to remain an explosive offense, not just now, but moving on into the future. So let's encourage that in him, because that is one of the special skill sets that he has. Let's take advantage of it. This also goes to show you why you can't always take the PFF scores as the end-all, be-all. This is why sometimes you got to turn on the tape, turn on the all-22, make a full assessment from what you're seeing with your own eyes, because sometimes they do get it wrong, and their analytics is very much an inexact science as it currently stands. So let's support Kenneth. Let's not throw any shade at him, undue shade at him, and let's understand that you got to take the good and the bad with this guy. Luckily, the good on the other side of it is he's a guy who's probably going to average darn near 5 yards a carry for you this year, and that is very much worth any of the dancing that he wants to do. He wants to salsa, he wants to break dance, he wants to disco. Fine. Give me over 5 yards a carry for the year. I'm happy to allow you to do it. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.